Hi and welcome back to another video of JPlay. I am Marcus, and as you can see today I'm starting my playthrough of Carnegie, which I believe there was a Kickstarter, which I didn't join, though this is pretty much the retail version published by Pegasus Spiele, at least here in Germany. Artwork done by the amazing Ian O'Toole. Again, this game looks gorgeous, like all of his games. And it comes with a solo mode, which I am going to try today. I played the multiplayer version really quite a bit over the last, I think I own it for a week. I think I played at least 3 or 4 times with 2 and 3 players, which worked amazing. But no, today I'm playing against Andrew Carnegie himself. Yeah, there is some backstory in the rules, who towards the end of his life apparently donated a ton of money into public libraries and whatnot. I saw some interesting discussions on The Geek in respect to what kind of a human friend he actually was, but okay, I take it in the end it's simply, I don't know, a frame for a theme which we are playing here. But again, in the solo mode we are playing against Andrew himself, who in this game is represented by a deck of AI cards. We are playing over 20 rounds. This sounds like a lot, but ultimately it's not extremely long, that game. I think 90 minutes or so. But again, that's his deck of cards, 20. I played on the, let's say, somewhat more advanced difficulty level. So you have 15, let's call it normal cards, which have an icon on the back, and so you know what Andrew is after. And on top of this I also had 5 of those advanced cards, so 15 normal, 5 advanced cards which come with a question mark, so I don't know what Andrew is up to, and they might be even a little bit more powerful. Ultimately we are trying to score the most amount of victory points at the end of the game, and at least in my experience the vast, and I really mean vast majority of points are scored towards the end of the game. There are chances to score you some in-game points, but we typically noticed, I don't know, 90 to 100% of the points are scored at the end of the game. And honestly, I do think that this should be somewhat similar for the solo mode, as there aren't a ton of ways how Andrew would score in-game points. I mean, all these victory point cards, they will award him points also towards the end of the game. Every time you see a blue symbol like this means end of game victory points, whereas something like this means these are in-game victory points. And again, the vast majority of those should be scored towards the end of the game. The flow of the game is based on this timeline, which is highly randomized. So I think there are 8 tiles in the game. They are double-sided, so every time you play you could end up with a different mix of these regions here. So in this instance we have 4 times the west in this configuration, only 2 times the midways towards the end of the game. So there is already a high amount of randomization, and ultimately the first player is choosing an action, then an event might happen. That's basically either a region event or a mission event or a donation event. Then all of the players will trigger the corresponding action, and once all of those markers have made it to the right side of this timeline here, this is then the end of the game. I have already done the setup, so you see those gray discs here. These are part of basically a 2 or 3 player game, so even when you really play a normal 2-player or 3-player game, you are blocking off some of the spaces here on the map on the donation track up here. So those are donations which none of the players will be able to achieve, including Andrew, that is. Andrew is the yellow player. He starts with markers on each of those transport tracks in all of the regions, like south, east, midwest, and the west. The same is true for me, the blue player. I also already did my thing here in my company board here, so I placed out my meeples. I already moved my meeples. You get a free movement action towards the end of setup. I already stood one of those guys up down here, which cost me $3, which is the reason why I'm down to only $9 after setup. I have my starting cubes here. I already placed my housing disc onto the game board. I decided to go with New York in that instance, and each disc will score you that amount of victory points. So this disc here will score 3 points. If I place a disc in here later on, that's 2 points, and so on. You can have multiple discs in a single city if for whatever reason that's something that you want to do. So I think with that being said, we should be ready to go, maybe. I also should mention that I have chosen my starting department tile here. That's something that Andrew doesn't do, though they're not getting a freebie disc onto the board. They're also not claiming one of those department tiles. And here's another way how you get some randomization into the game, but also only, no, I think that's true for all of the player counts. You're removing a certain amount of department tiles randomly from the offering. And I think in a two-player game or in a solo game, which is in the end a two-player game, you're removing pretty much half of those department tiles. They all come basically two of a kind. So because it's random, it could end up that we don't have some of the don't have any some of the departments. Some we have twice. In some instances, we only have one of those. And as far as I understood, on the Kickstarter campaign, there were extra department tiles. I do not own them. I do not know what those are, if they add any value to the game. But honestly, this game already is pretty replayable just on this timeline track alone. And maybe especially when you're playing a two or three player game, that I'm right now currently not missing anything. I am, in theory, the starting player. So you see here the locomotive, it's on the left-hand side of this card, which means I get to choose the action first. Anyway, Andrew takes his action first. No matter who's choosing the action, he's always taking the action first. At least that's how I understood the designer, Xavier. Not quite sure why he did that, because there are some very crucial timing things in this game. Maybe it was a balancing act in the end, I don't know. But at least I get to choose the action first. Then at the end of the round, the locomotive will move to the right hand side. So then Andrew is choosing which action we are going to play. And again, as part of these AI cards, we usually see what Andrew is going for. It's either we see what action Andrew is choosing, or we know which action Andrew will be the strongest. So which is something that I can then decide. Let's not take that action because I know this will move, I don't know, his R&D track too many spaces ahead. Let's go for something else, for example. But yeah, again, I get to choose the action and the order of things first, and this is now where the timeline comes into the picture here. I have some valid options to go for, maybe not movement, the HR one, because I already moved as part of setup and I'm okay. I could move at least one or two more meeples, maybe some more steps, but again, not the most crucial thing to do. The management action is a good one because this allows me to place my tile out, and the thing is, I also know that Andrew would very much also like to go for the management action in this case. So I could go for it, but then I know he will most likely get, I think, 2 or maybe even 3 of those departments here, which would score the I think 2 points per department in the end. So in this instance, normally this is a very good, solid first move to simply go for the management action here. But that's true for basically all of the players, because it helps me getting out my department in there and would strengthen my R&D in this case, which could be my next action, which could be his next action. But I think that's a good point, which I keep forgetting. I believe we are placing this card right next here. So next, we already know that he's going for an R&D action. And if I know that, because I'm pretty sure that's what the rules say, right? A round in the solo game is divided into 5 steps. New action card, draw Andrew's top action card without looking at place. Yes. So we do know that he will go for an R&D action. So this definitely helps. If this would have been the question mark, an advanced card, I wouldn't have known. But in this case, we really get crucial information. So I guess even though he also may get something good out of this, I should decide to go for the management action. So we are placing the timeline marker here. This will now trigger the event, which in this case means we are triggering donation event, which is the only thing that Andrew cares about. All the other events here, he doesn't care, but the donations are really crucial for him. So let's flip his card. He will go for the first, he will take his action first, as I already indicated, and we are only looking at the donation right now, which in this case he would place his donation marker onto a space which is already taken, basically as part of setup. So in this case, because he's not able to take this donation, we are moving his action card 1 space to the right. And at the end of the game, we will check all the action cards on where they are, and he will score that many points for each of those action cards. So if we are doing very well, if we are very lucky, all of the cards are in here or here, then we may only score 20 points, but that's not very likely, unfortunately. And yeah, he will really score a lot of points, or I think the majority of his points from these action cards here in the end. So I think we denied him 7 points here in theory. but again, it moved his thing one space to the right, and again, this can move up to 10 points here during the game. But I guess in this case, we might be okay. I think this card will end up where it is. But now we also get to take our donation action if we are willing and able to spend $5. Your first donation costs you 5, the second 10, 15, and so on. But it's only your donations that do count. So again, you're not looking at how many donations are out there at all from other players. You're really only looking at your donations. As I still happen to have $9, I will totally spend those $5. And I guess I am going for this donation here, which will score me 2 points for each commercial and or residential building out there on the project board, or basically on the main game board. And as I already started with a housing project here, so I get 3 points from this plus the 2 points I got from my donation. I think this is a valid thing. And again, the majority and the cheapest option to build projects out there onto the board are those commercial and or housing spaces anyway. So giving me a great way scoring some extra points toward the end of the game. Next, we are triggering the action that we have chosen. Again, Andrew goes first. And as we have chosen, the 3 tiles, if we have chosen the management action, he will basically take, 3 tiles from the display. That's 6 points for him. But the 6 points is one thing, but he's most likely taking some tasty stuff away from us. I think he will go for the lowest. And this one here, that's the most important one. I really should have paid attention here. This is really one of the best tiles in the game. Very tasty, but all tiles are good situationally, but this really gives you a lot of cash, a lot of cubes and whatnot. Wow, this definitely did hurt. So he's taking 1, 2, and 3 tile. Normally a player cannot have a copy of the same tile twice. Andrew doesn't care about this one. He has its own rules. He has simply scored 6 points from us, for him. And now we are taking our action, which in this case means we are triggering all of our management buildings. We started with 2, and we can trigger them in any order, but we have to complete a department or completely before we are moving. So we cannot move from this meeple to this meeple, then move back. No, we have to finish one department before we are moving to the next. But we are completely free to start with this or this. That's completely on us. Because I think I have nothing to lose, I will start with this department. And ultimately, you are looking into each department how many standing meeples you have there. So a meeple or a worker can either stand or they lay down. If they lay down, they are considered to be, let's call it, in training, in transit, whatsoever. And again, I chose during setup that I wanted to not stand up this meeple. I stood up this meeple because I needed him. I don't need 2 of those, I guess. So if we're triggering this department here first, we only have 1 active worker in here, and you're never deactivating the meeple unless you are moving them out. Then they are still laying down, because then they have to be retrained, or when you're sending them out to a mission later on, which I will explain in a minute. Then you're also, if they return, they will also be laid face down into the lobby area here. So in this case, we have 1 active meeple, which means we can now build a department. I think that's the strategic planning or so is the department's name here. And we can either spend 2 cubes to place any one department tile onto any tile here. After setup, we have to go with the tile that we have chosen during setup, so we cannot simply take another one. No, we have to build this one here first. Or we only spend 1 cube, one of these goods cubes here, and we are starting with 4, to place a department tile onto an empty space where there is a meeple. And that's the reason why I moved a meeple in there as part of setup. So let's totally place that guy in here. It's laying down. I will already announce that I'm going to stand the meeple up. So I'm spending the $3 here. So in order to activate a meeple, to train them, you have to spend what is written there. Some of the departments come with 0 costs, but in this case, this guy will cost us $3, which we still have. But this has taken care of this department. And at the end of the game, we will score 2 points for this department here too, because it's in this section. If we are placing something into the top row, then we are scoring 3 points for that. Not that big of a deal. 2 points versus 3 point swing really doesn't change a lot, but something to consider. Then we are activating our, I think, finance, and I think it's a financial building or a department here in this case, which for each meeple we have standing, we have 2 of those. We can either leave the meeple where they are and take $3 or a goods cube. And I think we had to spend the goods cube. I almost forgot that when we placed that building here. I'm still having 3, so we can either simply leave that meeple here and take $3 or a cube, and we can do that for both. We get to choose which action each one is taking, or we can send them out to a mission, and again, we can also decide. One goes for this action, another one goes for this action. This is the main way how you are sending meeples, or one of the main ways how you're sending meeples onto the mission spaces, onto the main game board. And I think I will definitely do that for this guy. We get to choose a choice if we want $6 or 2 cubes for that. Let's start with a $6 for now, just to have some money. And this fella goes into the mission area of one of those regions here. And this is now very important that we have another closer look at the timeline, because we need to understand when each of those regions are being triggered. So for example, the Midwest will trigger only twice or maybe 3 times if we also consider this space here, but very late in the game. So sending someone to the Midwest right now, you might really starve to death there, actually, before we get any income from those, because sending them out to a mission will give us income when we recall them. So the East would be okay. We do know for a fact that Andrew is triggering the R&D action next, which could then mean something there. But the East is also something that will happen relatively often, 3 times here plus 1 at the end of this timeline track for the human resources track. So I guess in this case, let's send our meeple here. That's basically all that happens for now. Again, only if I recall this fella, I will get something additional, potentially something additional from that. But I already got the $6 as part of our action here on the department. So he already paid something to us. So he generated revenue for us. And as for the second guy, we are also sending them out to a mission. In this case, we are taking 2 goods cubes for that. And in this case, I guess I want to be present in the West, because there are a lot of opportunities triggering something useful there. Even though we may not want to recall that fella with the next activation here, we might still want to do that maybe here, there, or maybe towards the end. But I think this one should be our target for the West. Similarly, we may not want to go for the first of those South actions here, for the East actions here. So that's really, timing is so crucial in this game, so important that you really prepare your turns or your actions, because otherwise you are, again, you're starving your firm, you're bleeding it dry pretty much. But I guess these were all of my actions. Now I get to choose if I want to activate any one of my, or any number of my laying down meeples. So I could spend 5 here and 3 there. I think in this case we are only standing up this R&D fellow. This is a more advanced R&D department. This cost me $3, and I think I will leave this fella laying down as it is. And then last but not least, we are moving the starting player marker. We will put this card face down, so this card will score Andrew 1 point at the end of the game, which is okay. Andrew gets first dibs on the timeline track, but I still have to move the action. This is how we are basically progressing the game. Again, if all of those action markers are here at the end of this track, this is game over. Let's start the next round. Again, Andrew is first. We are moving this over, so we already see what his next action is, I think, or what his next strongest action is, because we get to choose the order of things in this case. So, and because he's choosing the action, we know which action it is. It will be this one here. We are flipping this card over right away because it was outlined in an orange way. We know he's triggering the R&D action, which also would trigger this event now. So we could recall our meeple here. We would immediately get, for every meeple we are sending back to our company, to our lobby, we would gain the money or the bonus on which our traffic marker currently is on the traffic track here. So that's $1 measly for this guy. We would gain this reward for every meeple. So let's say we would have 3 meeples, we would recall them all, we would gain $3. But typically what's also important, or maybe sometimes even more important, is the income on our R&D or project tabs here, for example. So you see this little exclamation point here on those. Whenever you are basically developing, and we come to that in a minute or so, and we are then later on building those projects, then we are basically freeing up those spaces, and for each exposed exclamation mark you see, you get the reward respectively. So if this would be the case, we would score 1 point right now, and we would also gain 2 of those product cubes. Right now all of those are covered. So really sending this guy back now for $1 measly is definitely not our best bet. And Andrew doesn't care about those project spaces, by the way. It's really the choice is only on us, so we can directly jump into the action, which in this case means he's moving 3 times on the south traffic track. And I think this is the transportation track. 1, 2, 3, for every disc he has here at the last space of each of those tracks, he will score 6 points at the end of the game. And only one player can ever go to a final space of those transportation tracks. So he's already well on his way making it there. I can still go on these spaces. These spaces can in theory take any amount of this, so up to 4, but in a 4-player game we're only playing 2, and we only have 1 disc each on those transportation tracks. But again, this final space triggers an immediate reward, not for Andrew but for us, but he might be able to take this away from us. But that was already the end of his R&D action, and because he was able to take this action to its full, we are flipping this card over where it is, so this doesn't score him any points whatsoever. Nice. Now over to us. We currently have 2 meeples standing here in the standard R&D department, so that's 6 R&D points, so 3 per meeple, and we have 7 up here. Unfortunately, this department only can take 1 meeple, but still that's a very efficient way of getting R&D points. So in total we have 13 R&D points. So in this case we don't have to resolve those departments individually. We really sum up all of the R&D points, which is the one deviation from how these departments, for example, where you have to first do this and then do that. In this case we are simply coming down to 13 R&D points. And I think we are going to spend some of those on the eastern transportation track, and you see those symbols here. So in order to move our disc from this space to this, we have to spend 3 of our 13 points, and I think we want to do that again, because again, if we are now recalling this fella, we are getting a meeple into our lobby. We have still 5 meeples in our reserves, and having enough workers both on the mission areas here on the board and on your firm is so crucial to balance these things out. So we have spent 5 of our 13 points, which leaves us with 8 more to go. I will spend 2 on this track here, so whenever we are pulling this guy now away, we are getting $3 for each meeple, that is. So I think this definitely does help. So we are down to 6 points. And then we can also spend points on our project tabs here. And what should I do? I think, as we do have a good way of getting meeples now from the eastern track, I'm not sure if we need this one here. On the other hand, we do want to be able to do that. And the housing project tab right now only costs us 1 R&D point. So we see this symbol here, so we move this one out, that's 1, that's another 1. So for 2 points we could already send, for 3 points we could go for this. Question is, do we want to go that aggressive on housing? I think we want them all in the end. Again, we have 6 more points, and here I'm really thinking about doing 1, 2, and whenever you are basically increasing your project tab, you place immediately to project this on this, which will then allow you to build those projects. Right now we are planning those projects strategically, and then with another action we can then ultimately build those. So we have spent 2 out of our 6, and I guess lastly I'm going to also develop the project tab here for the, I think, the bridges or whatever it is, and this could give us in-game victory points if we are able to build that one here. And this is kind of a, let's say, mitigation plan, because I do see that things in Washington could get relatively tight. So if Andrew goes in here next, and he will always go to the left-hand spot, then Washington only leaves me room for a bridge-based project. And a big part of your points is or you will earn from these links here. So each of those city comes with a link value. So ultimately, we are trying to connect as many of those capital cities like New York, Chicago, New Orleans, and San Francisco as possible. And for each of those cities, you will get some link points. So San Francisco has 2, all of the others only have 1 link point. And at the end of the game, you check how many link points you have. So if you connect all 5 of those, your minimum amount of points will be 18, which is great. But if you also manage to bring all of those transport tracks into the green area, and there really need to be, all of the connected cities need to be green, then you might be able to score up to 36 points. And right now we at least achieved this for the eastern track, which is relatively easy to come to the green. You already start at yellow, so you never start at the red space, whereas in the Midwest space we are still on red and we need 2 more steps to move into green. And here in west it's even worse, we need 3 steps to make it into the green area, not speaking about the south one where we also need at least 2 steps. So a lot of R&D points will still go into our traffic or transportation tracks at some point in time. But I believe those were all of my R&D points respectively. Yes. So we are moving this thing ahead. So the next time we are triggering this action, we will go for another donation. And right now I may not want to do this, because keep in mind, our second donation will cost us 10 points and we are down to only 7. And whenever you are being offered a donation, you should take that offer. And that's really a huge part in this game in respect to player interaction, reading the other players' game board states, game situation. Can they afford another donation? Should I go there first? Should I wait? And which action should I trigger because all the other players are not prepared accordingly? And this is all a little bit different in the game against Andrew, but at least you have some idea about what Andrew is doing, unless one of those question mark cards come up. So we do know for a fact if he will be very strong on the HR step next. Again, not sure if I want to do that now with this action, but we are starting the next round. We are moving the locomotive back. So we are drawing the next card, and yes, the next round we have no clue what Andrew is up to, and he will choose the action. No, that's really bad. So we do know if we go for this action, he will most likely move this card 3, maybe even 4 spaces ahead, which could score him 6 or 10 points. On the other hand, if we go for a different action now, we might be able to deny Andrew those points. And I think in this case, we are not moving meeples. It might be tempting because we still have some folks laying down here, which we might want to move over to this location here, for example. Maybe even this guy standing, even though he could give us another department, which could be some victory points for us and some more opportunities to do more meaningful stuff. But I guess, I think that would give him too many points. So I'm really inclined. I mean, this would be a good one, but we don't have anything in the south. This would be terrible because we are lacking $3. We can always basically sell our goods cubes for $1 each, but that's really not great. If it would be 1, if I would have $9, then maybe that would be an easier choice. But this one here doesn't do us anything either. That's so bad. I mean, really moving now could be a good option actually, but I don't want to give him those points, especially because I don't know what he's up to. But that's all the more reason if he's doing something. Ooh. Yeah, these question mark cards are tough. That's already something. Normally, again, when you play a multiplayer game, you are able to somewhat, I think, analyze the other players, what they will go for. Do I need to care about particular action, or do I see they will go for take that action anyway? In this case, with a question mark on Andrew's card, I'm not sure. But just to, again, deny him the points, maybe do send something. That could be a thing, actually. Yeah, I think I might regret that. We are going to the construction action. So we are triggering this event space again. Andrew is ignoring this. We could decide. No, we don't have. We don't have one. What am I thinking? No, we don't have any meeples down there, so let's forget about this anyway. No, we are also not calling someone of a mission, but then we are doing this. And again, he will always take the action first again, which I really don't like that, because again, if I choose first, I should also be able to trigger my action first. That's how the multiplayer version works, and timing can be extremely crucial in this game. But okay, in this case, he goes first. I have chosen the construction action, which in this case means he's building 2 projects into Boston and Washington. And again, he's always choosing the leftmost part. I think the first one was Boston. So wow, Boston is completely out of the game. No one else can build there. And the next one would be Washington. And wow, exactly what I thought. I need to go for, if I want to really make my way down here from New York over Washington, over Atlanta into New Orleans. Again, I want to connect those 2 major cities here. This would be at least 2 link points. I could go over Pittsburgh, of course, but I think that's the shortest route here. Wow. So I have to build a bridge there just to get presence in Washington. Are you kidding me? And that was a weak action. I think when the cards are strong, this could be up to 4 cities there, actually. So I think this was still a good deal. And overall, if I would have chosen the HI action, he would have moved his cards 3 spaces, which would have moved this card to 6 victory points. And because he was able to build into both project areas, he's simply leaving that card here. So this card is worth 0 points for him too. So I still think that this was worth it, even though he built two major cities and kind of forced my hand. As for my construction action, I only have 1 meeple here, and we have to send this meeple now onto a mission area if I want to take that action. I don't have to do that, and if I don't have meeples, I couldn't do that anyway. But in this case, I definitely want to build a project, and the question is, do I want to do a protective move now, basically building that bridge here in Washington? And I think I have to do that, because otherwise this would be 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. I think that's 1 step less to make it in New Orleans, and yeah, I think I have to do that, which means I have to send this meeple also to the region or mission area of that region which I am planning to build. The idea is to build a bridge in Washington. I still have a project disk here, so let's say this disk wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to build a bridge because I haven't prepared the project yet, but in this case I'm totally fine. I have to spend 2 cubes in order to do that. That's really awfully expensive, but again allows me to place this disk now onto this. And whenever now we are taking or recalling dudes later on the other hand, we are not getting anything. That's really the problem. If I do this, I get a point each time I'm recalling at least 1 person from the east or from anywhere on the board. But the thing is, I'm not getting any real income. And now I'm really tempted maybe to go for the commercial space instead, because again, money can be extremely tight in this game. I think I will take the risk. I will take the risk. So I will not go for this bridge project. I will go for this, I think, finance commercial project in this case. And I believe I will immediately put it into New Orleans in there, because Atlanta we still have 3 spaces. We have this one here. The bridge is the critical one. If I would have 2 dudes there in this department, and that's really the balancing piece that you have to do. Are you sending folks to the which departments are you starting the game off? I think I may have been okay to only send 1 guy here, and maybe I should have sent another dude in there, because when that action triggers, you really want to move as many meeples onto the board and build as many projects as possible. But yeah, nothing I can take back, but I will play it this way. Yep. Then the locomotive will move over here. I will do the stuff on the timeline track, and then yeah, we are basically moving into the next round. I think there's nothing else. I don't want to activate meeples or so. No. So we are moving into the next round. He's choosing the action. Next time he will go for, or he will focus on the management action again, which means he will take departments like crazy. So maybe let's not do that as our next action, but let's see what this round he will be up to. So we are flipping this over. So he's going for an R&D action again, which is bad. Yes, this is really not great because he will trigger that donation here, which means I'm not able to take that donation unless I'm willing to spend 3 of my cubes to get the remaining dollars I need. Again, I have 7, I need 10 for my second donation, and going down to only 1 cube, I think that's really not a great idea. But he will choose first anyway, and those AI cards are so incredibly cleverly designed. It's really so easy to play those. This is something I always like, when there is a very straightforward but still challenging AI, which I think this is really an amazing job. So Andrew will go for this space, which means he's grabbing this donation here. And the way how this works is at the end of the game, it's also such a clever thing they did for the solo mode, is I basically score for Andrew. So normally you would get 2 points for each of those donation discs you have out on the board. In this case, he's looking for my donation disc. So now whenever I place a donation disc, I give him 2 points for that. So it's always a balancing act. I mean, 2 points, if I get, I don't know, 7 points out of this, that's still a thing, but something to still consider. So right now that's 2 points for him. And I think really only my discount here, not the combined things of the two of us. That's at least my understanding. Then we are moving into the action itself. Again, I cannot afford, I don't want to afford a donation. So he's now moving 4 spaces on the Midwestern track. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he made it here to the maximum points. Again, no one else can go there. Normally a player would get 10 immediate dollars for that, which is huge. But unfortunately, that chance is gone. And for every step he wouldn't be able to move, this card would then move 1 space to the right. But because he was fully able to resolve that card, we can basically place it next to the 0 victory point card in here. So right now he's really not yet scoring an awful lot of points from his cards, but the later we come, the more likely it will be that spaces will be blocked or he will not be able to resolve actions. So these cards will start to move further down the line as we go. Then I'm doing my R&D, and because nothing has changed, I still get 13 points out of this. So what am I going to do? Let's start here on those tracks here. So I guess that's important too. And I want to move, I mean, if I want to move in here, but right now, I mean, I could make it to Chicago relatively easily. I think spending 4 points is okay. So for my reward, I will get 3 R&D points whenever I get a meeple from there. But the thing is, that's not going to happen for quite a long time. But still, prepping this, but then again, no, I think let's not do it just yet. Let's not do it just yet. This is so late that this will trigger. This would be rather wasteful. So I guess we could maybe move things down here. Right now there aren't any meeples yet, but this might change. And oh, I think I did something wrong. Of course, I placed my building here, not into Washington. So this meeple should have been here. So I guess I would have been able to recall, but again, not taking that back. Yeah, I plan to place that meeple here into the bridge, and that's why I placed the meeple there. No, this meeple should have been here, but that's all the more reason to increase that track by 4 points here. So when we are recording, we will gain $5 for that. That's really not bad. So we have 4 points spent out of 13. So apologies for that one here. We have 9 more points to go. West would be could be one of the next things. So I guess we are spending 1 more point in here. So when we are triggering this, we would gain a cube. And we are not getting to choose the reward. So let's say I'm here, I could not go for this or that space. I have to get the reward that my marker is on. So that was another point. So I spent 5 points. I have 8 left. I will definitely spend 2 because you need to have all of those projects at your disposal, as much as you can at least. I think that's really important. So we have 6 more points left. So I guess, I already have to start moving things actually, because do I want more? Or do I want to go for 1 more here? I have 6 more points. So if I do this and this, we are here. Let's do it like this, yeah. Because we also want these industry tracks, because they can give you cubes. And if you have a supply of cubes coming in as part of income, that's also huge. But I think those were all of my points here. So we had 6 points, 8 points here, and 5 points coming from the transportation tracks. Right. So that was basically our action. So I guess the solo mode is relatively quick actually. So we are moving the locomotive back. We will be next, but we know Andrew is after the transportation one, the management one. But I think I don't have any immediate reason to do that. So I'm really tempted now to go for this movement one here, just to reactivate some of my meeples later on. I think that's what I need to do. But I guess for today I will call it. So this leaves me some room for any fixes I might spot or you might provide me or something I may find doing editing or so. Before I forget, a huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members out there. You guys are truly amazing. Also note, I recently launched another giveaway. So if you check out my most recent video, you can win yourself a copy of the Zorro dice game, pretty much with a lot of extra stuff. You get the dice tray, you get the dice cup and so on. Go check out that video. And there you will find a link to the contest on Gleam. And yeah, with that being said again, like and subscribe, leave a comment. This also greatly helps the channel. And yeah, hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, maybe the second episode of my playthrough of Carnegie. And until then, bye bye.